Welcome to the epicenter of sports and entertainment. This is the Root Dog Show. Now, here's your host, Rudy Reyes.
Gotta love technology.
I was gonna say, man, you're muted.
How about the click? The click is not it. This is Rudy Reyes on RootDogShow.com. Buried along the second, not the first, not the third, and will never be the last as far as I know. That could change. Depends on your point of view. All-Star Weekend has came and went. It was a blink of an eye, or I guess if it's raining threes from men.
Yes.
Wait. Okay, yes, it was. And,
not Raining Men.
Sounded like a song. Like, wait a minute, there's something real fishy about that one. Speaking of fishy, nothing more fishy than what we're going to talk about today, because there's been a lot of criticism, and I'm not talking about just this All-Star NBA game. I'm talking about in the entire NBA All-Star Weekend vibe, all the vibes that you were chilling in, all the vibes that you were feeling from the three-point contest, slam dunk contest. This has got to be the worst of the worst. Now, I don't mean Sabrina against Steph. I'm not talking about the celebrity game. That was actually pretty cool. I wasn't tuned in that game. But Barry, what is up with the viewership? This is like a roller coaster for the NBA. And to be honest with you, this is an epic failure by Adam Silver.
Yeah, it is. And for all the good things that Adam Silver has been doing for the game, for the NBA, I mean, he's increased viewership across the world. He has, changed some of the ways that teams do things as far as load management is concerned. And he invited the in-season tournament to the table and was able to pull that off. It's a success. So viewership is coming in earlier in the season. It used to not be that casual fans wouldn't watch NBA until Christmas Day. And the rest of them wouldn't watch till after the NFL was over. But now we have guys watching the game, watching the games before Christmas Day. So Adam Silver's done a lot good for the game. But the one thing that I could not stand that he's done is change the format for the All-Star game. In 2017 is when he started changing the format. When they went from the traditional East and West, and then they all of a sudden wanted to have like Team LeBron versus Team Durant. And then they would go out and pick these, and they would pick their players. And it was just one of those things where it's frustrating, man. It's really frustrating because the ratings have gone down. Obviously, there's no defense being played. It's kind of like the flag football game for the Pro Bowl. Literally, like nobody's playing defense, and it's cool to see these guys get up and throw the outlet passes and the alley-oop dunks and stuff like that. That's cool, but these guys should be hunkering down at least in the second half, like the East and Western conferences used to do. And the 80s and the 90s All-Star games. It's one of those things where it's hard to watch. I mean, they scored 211 points yesterday, Rudy. 211 points. I mean, there's virtually no defense whatsoever. It's the most point total we've ever seen by a single team and the most total we've seen by two teams, 397. So, I mean, it's boring watching an NBA shoot around. I mean, even if it's All-Star. So, yeah, I think there's got to be some kind of incentive that's added to this weekend. Maybe they pay the winning team $1 million a piece or $500,000 a piece, much like they do with the in-season tournament. But you've got to find a way to incentivize guys to play harder and to make this an actual watchable game.
Sure, no, absolutely. I could not agree more, Barry. And here's why. You have your East versus West. Okay, now it's formatted to where it is actually East versus West teams. So that's great. They put that element inside of it. The problem that I have with that whole thing is now it's a popularity contest. Who gets the popular vote? And the fans, now I get the fan component of it, trying to help deviate from this is a league-only decision and these are the guys who are going to be in it. You have no say about it. I respect the fact that they're getting fans involved in the concept of being able to add that element into it where fans can actually vote and say, well, you could put your MVP in. Well, that's great and wonderful. But what if they stink up the joint? What if there's no defense, which there wasn't? There's a lot of things that transpired on the floor. And you mentioned about the second half of the game. I take nothing away from the first half, but the second half, are you serious? Still no defense. You see a couple guys going up in the West that should have never gone up for any slam dunks because they probably just can't do it. Luka Doncic tried one. The Joker tried another one. He was successful on one, not successful on the other. And, to be honest with you, it was very underwhelming for me. And the highlight of this game, to be honest with you, was either Sabrina and Stefan, or it was the celebrity contest. Now, if they mixed and matched, let's say they put a little bit of the element from the celebrity game into the real-time game by moving that three-point shot, now you could have a little something, right? Or if they shoot from three, you give them a money ball. And if they shoot from three, you pause, you bounce another ball in per the ref. If they make that variable three-point shot with that line moving, that can mean like a total of 6 points, right? If it's a moving three.
Well, you're saying to add this to the regular All-Star game?
Absolutely, and keep the fans out of the vote. Keep the fans out of the vote altogether. You put the best of the best against the best of the best Eastern Western Conference. That's it. Now, as far as what the fan experience should be, those fans' experience by the NBA should be what the NFL's fans' experience should actually be. Because I've been to those, and they are fun. They are super fun. Right. And if they were to incentivize players, as you stated, to give them even more money, part of that would go to the charity of their choice, right? If it's a money ball, you shoot that from that moving three. If it's a moving three and further out, let's just say at the 4 or 6 point line, or even at half court. I mean, dude, Damian Lillard, who won the 3-point contest, by the way, for those that did not know or did not watch the game, he could easily make that up and give it to a charity of his choice.
Yeah,
why would he want to be incentivized to do that?
Yeah, and he hit 2 half-court shots, and they were like regular spot-up threes. It wasn't like he was just throwing with one hand. I mean, this dude swished him. He swished him from half-court.
Nothing but net.
But the thing is that if you add that, Rudy, then you all of a sudden have scores of 300 and 400 points, and then we get into like arcade.
Right. Well, but again, that's when you play defense. If that line is moving and you have Damian shooting from three, or you have Jason Tatum shooting from three, and they happen to be on the same team this year around anyway, which is a kind of an oddity to me. But and the Bucks are failing in so many different ways. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. If you are going to play defense and you defend someone and prevent them from shooting that money they would have otherwise gotten from that swish will go to your favorite charity.
I've got a solution. How about they just play defense? I mean, seriously. And look. This is how you can incentivize that. Maybe you give a reward for the person who has the most steals and the most blocks and the most rebounds. And maybe you just incentivize it that way rather than just incentivizing them saying, hey, the winning team gets $1 million a player or whatever like that. So then you have guys actually trying, because it was just, I mean, as soon as the ball, I get it. You want to there's going to be times where guys are going to have wide open, looks to the basket. They're going to be on a fast break. Yeah. And that's when but there are literally guys just standing there, and it's like, dude,
just watching threes go over there.
And it's basketball. It's one of the least potential injury sports that we watch on TV. I mean, football, and ice hockey, and all these UFC. These are sports that people can get injured. So I understand the Pro Bowl not wanting to tackle each other, but basketball, playing defense is not going to get you hurt. I mean, it's a freak injury if we ever see anybody get injured. They can even get injured jumping up for an alley-oop or whatever, for a dunk.
You're right.
I just think that this is just play defense, and I don't know.
And that doesn't really mean they're going to. And how can you incentivize a guy to play D, right? Yeah. You incentivize them by saying, you know what, you can give back to your favorite charity, or you can have one of your friends or your family come out and shoot for charity or something like that. Look, the NBA is missing the boat on this. They're missing the boat on the components of being able to make this parity so simply put that when you look at 2003 and the viewership there, we're talking the highest in NBA history, the highest. NBA All-Star should be an all-star game. That means you play D, you play O, you break a little sweat, you have a little fun. There are so many events that, like Kenny the Jet Smith had 3 events he attended. Everybody should be able to contribute to an event while in the area and give whatever money raised back to a worthy cause, because they don't need the money, but they need to play defense. and offense needs to play offense, and you need to have accuracy. It's like playing an actual NBA game that is beyond meaningful, because that's what the All-Star game is all about. That's what an NFL All-Star game is all about. It's having fun and enjoying yourself while you're doing it. Okay, look, non-contact sport, I don't know if there is one, a pure non-contact sport. I get that the NBA wants to prevent elbows and eyeballs and things of that nature. I get it. But the NFL at a flag football, yeah, I got a problem with that too. I mean, if this is a two-hand touch, then it should be two-hand touch, not flag.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to say about that one. But I mean, in the tank is where we've seen this downhill trend of 211 points from the East and 397 total points East and West. But this was the lowest in a century's time. 2023 through 2013 is a complete century. Okay, it's a 10-year marker, and the fact that they keep going less and less and less and less every single year. Last year it was 6.3. Well, year before that, 6.1. So this is big toggle. You don't have to be able to understand that this has to be enjoyable, because it was like watching paint dry in a sandstorm. There was nothing pleasant about this whatsoever, and it didn't have the pizzazz. It didn't have the glitz and glamour. Maybe if it was in Las Vegas, maybe if it was in LA, maybe you would have that element of pizzazz and panache, and you'd be able to put all that on display. Not a lot of slam dunks. Well, I don't know. I would say very well placed balls in some instances where there were alley-oops to other players and whatnot. Okay, that's great. But when you see a 23% decrease in viewership,
wow,
there's something wrong. Lowest watch All-Star game ever recorded in the NBA.
Wow.
Okay, that's where Adam Silver has epically failed on.
And this is after we just saw the Super Bowl have the highest ratings that it's ever had in the history of the league. So, I mean, one league is doing something
the
right,
NFL and the NBA, who's taking what page out of what book? Who should take a page out of whose book, right? The NBA should be taking a page out of the NFL's book this time around and say, you know what? We need to do X, Y, and Z and ABC. Otherwise, they're going to be seeing their way out of here and clicking on something else to watch. Let's Netflix and chill, as an example.
And if the NBA wants to see the ratings like the NFL had for the Super Bowl, maybe they should invite Taylor Swift to sit courtside.
That would probably be as bad as asking Steve Nash to come back and coach the Nets. Speaking of the Nets, this is Rudy Reyes on the Root Dog Show, joined by Barry Long. We're going to jump into the next segment here. We're staying in the NBA, but we're talking about the Brooklyn Nets. And the Nets have found themselves in a web of, I don't know, deceit. Maybe they've hit a webbed ceiling. I don't know. Maybe that comes from the fact that I watched Madam Web earlier. But Jacques Vaughn was released by the Brooklyn Nets. He was in 2 seasons, 71-68 in the regular season, 0-8 in the playoffs. It doesn't bode well for him at all. And then only after a year of being with the Nets, they fire him after signing to a multi-year contract extension. Now, what are they on the hook for paying him that multi-contract extension? I believe all of it. When you put your name to paper with pen or blood, as it were, that's your money. You know, whether or not he wants to ever play again in the coaching room in the NBA remains to be seen. But Steve Nash is not going to come back at 40, 43, and 32, getting swept in the first round of the ECF, or Eastern Conference playoffs. This team's got some issues, Barry. What are some of your views in regards to how these Nets can make the playoffs?
Well, the Nets right now currently sit 11th in the Eastern Conference, and they obviously are trending down because Jacques Vaughn, was let go. And they're gonna bring in Kevin Ollie. Now, Kevin Ollie is a former NBA player, played for the Thunder. He also was a former college coach, coached UConn to a national championship, and that was a special run that year. And he's always been a guy that has built great rapport with players, whether it be on the professional level or on the college level. Wasn't that good at recruiting, though. That's why it didn't ultimately work out for him.
Correct.
But the thing about it is that this Nets team, I mean, they had stars. They had some superstar power with Kevin Durant. You had Kyrie Irving there before. You had James Harden there, Ben Simmons there. I mean, so we've seen them go through superstars, and now they went and traded Kevin Durant to the Phoenix Suns. They got some good pieces back. You got Mikal Bridges, who has been on fire, lighting it up since he's been in Brooklyn. And he really needed to go there to take that extra step to become a guy that's a household name now. Cam Johnson, who's been terrific for them. I mean, they've got some pieces. And the thing about it is that they need more coaching. They need Ben Simmons to be healthy because he's always nicked up some kind of way. And they're going to need somebody that can go into that locker room and make those guys believe. I mean, you got Lonnie Walker coming off the bench for crying out loud. Dennis Schroeder, who's been a starter in the league for a long time, I mean, coming off the bench. I mean, you've got Dorian Finney-Smith on the team. So this team, this roster is not that bad. This roster should be able to make the playoffs. But what Kevin Ollie is going to have to do is he's going to have to get through to the players because Jacques Vaughn's voice, they just kind of ignored him. You know, I mean, and they phased him out. They tuned him out, as they say. But this guy, Kevin Ollie, if he can inspire them and galvanize the troops, then I see them getting in at least into the play-in tournament. But yeah, the 8th seed is right there. So we'll see. But I have full faith that Kevin Ollie can be the spark that this team needs.
Well, if his name was Muhammad Ali instead of Kevin Ollie, I think we may have something. And I say that on the precipice of him having by far one of the worst components on the bench in Ben Simmons. Look, the bottom line is you cut a guy like Ben Simmons and call it a day. Ship him off. It should have been done at the trade deadline. He's dead money. You get Mikal Bridges, who's been, relatively lighting up the screen. Cam Johnson came over from Phoenix, who's been playing extremely well. He's one of your significant role player type of guys. He plays that third man, right? That fourth guy, because you always need a shooter on the floor regardless. And Cam Johnson brings that to you coming out of North Carolina for his second year. The problem is that the Nets, in order for them to make the playoffs, and that's a very high ceiling. That is a very tough haul because they have plenty of teams ahead of them between the Hawks, the Bulls, Magic, Heat, Pacers, 76ers, Knicks, Bucks, Cavs, and Celtics, who are playing absolutely flawless ball. Almost flawless ball, I should say. You eliminate Ben Simmons, as I stated earlier, waste money, more so sitting on the bench than he actually attributes to being a component in that roster. You clearly have wasted enough of fans' money. Okay, fans' money. This fans' money. This is not operational money. This is fans' money. They paid to fill the seats. They pay to watch players, not players sit. Okay. Secondly, you mentioned Kevin Ollie having to step up to the plate, rally the troops, get these guys together. He's now the interim head coach. Depending on what he does this season, and I don't mean staying stagnant at the 11th position. I mean climbing those ranks, the proverbial ranks between the Hawks and the Bulls. You can get in that mix. Kevin Ollie could ultimately see himself as the head coach for the Brooklyn Nets. Now, I understand Brooklyn Nets are a smaller market team, and they don't get a ton of love, just like Oklahoma City Thunder, just like the Charlotte Hornets and a few other teams in the NBA. But what happened was this. You have Jim Paxson, who's a former GM for the Cavaliers, went on to state that they believe that he could come in and bridge that gap in the point guard position during his playing days. He is a very good influencer in regards to the lineup. He's a good influencer inside of the locker room, and he's one of the primary reasons why LeBron James is where he is right now, with guys like Ollie and his professionalism and the approach to the game. And the quality of the team obviously is more valued now that he's playing with LeBron. LeBron James is getting to where he can be and where he is right now, playing his 21st All-Star game, by the way. The GOAT in the NBA. He holds that record, holds the record in points, and the Lord knows what else he's leading the record in right now, or close to exceeding the record limit. This is Rudy Reyes on the Root Dog Show, joined by Barry Long. The second, not the first, not the third. And as far as I am concerned, he's first in the lunch line. We're going to kind of shift gears here because the NFL is, it's over. And that's probably one of the reasons why I'm not wearing a Steeler hat, but I am wearing a baseball hat. And, of course, my team are the Pirates. Of course, again, another small market team in a very small pond. But with that, the Steelers are one of the largest, teams in NFL history. They were the first to 6 Super Bowl, titles and whatnot. But the problem is that, and I've had this consistently, Barry, kind of hover over like a cloud that brings rain with it, because you can make the playoffs every single year. That's great, wonderful, kudos to you. but you're not getting into the big dance. You're not getting deep into AFC postseason play. That's been the problem. And I think Mike Tomlin has a very interesting decision to make in regards to who the QB1 is. Rumors around Kenny Pickett not wanting, or at least there are reports stating that people are not wanting Kenny Pickett to be that number one QB in training camp. But training camp is a proving ground for it all, as we know. But when he went down, it was, well, Rudolph who come to the rescue, saved the sleigh for Santa Claus, and Mason Rudolph ultimately ended up leading the Steelers into postseason play as a number one QB. Could he be that QB in this season if they retain him, if they keep him?
No.
My answer is yes.
Really?
Yes, my answer is yes, and here's why. Kenny Pickett is not ready. He's not ready to take that stage. And for those that are listening to this is not about hand size, because as they say, size doesn't matter. That's what I heard. And the size of the ball and his hands is a bunch of weight in the cloud, means nothing. But I believe that Mason Rudolph has the respect of that locker room based on what he did in postseason play. And that's it. He knows the system. He knows how Mike Tomlin wants it. He understands the organization. He's been there long enough. I just believe that Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett will be the battler. Now, with that being said, the NBA, the NFL draft is right around the corner. So that brings up even more questions. Who do they take in the latter round? Well, there's a lot of quarterbacks, but you don't take them in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, or even the sixth round. You take them in the seventh round. There's still going to be some low-hanging fruit that they can develop. The problem is that the Steelers, if you're not plug and play from a quarterback perspective, you're not going to be there very long. And we've seen lots of quarterbacks go through this for the Steelers, get put on practice squad, then all of a sudden another team comes along and poaches him and then calls it a day. But there's one quarterback that I don't see in the rearview mirror. You know, the object in the mirror is closer than it appears, and that's Russell Wilson. Mm-hmm. And here's why. His contract is way too big, way too thick. There are too many zeros, and the Steelers will not pick up that contract. Now, with that being said, Barry, I'm going to ask you, looking at Russell Wilson listing his house in Denver, as you know, it's a boomer bust town. I know that. I used to live there. It's the only reason why I know that. What team, if not the Steelers, do you see Russell Wilson taking part in and maybe being the starter?
The only team that really probably has room on the books might be New England, and New England is pretty much an attractive place for any free agent, any guy that wants to be traded. Has been in the past, at least, not right now. So, with the addition of having a new head coach and getting rid of Bill Belichick, it does make it look a little bit more enticing. But there's no weapons around. And so when you look at that contract, man, it's not going to be easy to get him on any team, especially as a starter. And I see, him having to take significantly less money, and trying to force whatever team that he gets traded to. I see them trying to force Denver to pay the rest of that contract, and then they try to get him, signed on the league minimum the next contract he's had before. But yeah, I mean, I've heard rumors that the Jets could probably get him as a backup. I've heard rumors, that there's other places that the New Orleans Saints were looking maybe, but on his short list of teams when he was with the Seattle Seahawks, he had a few teams. The Giants were one of them, and the Steelers happened to be on there. And it's just crazy to me that the Steelers haven't been able to find a QB1 since Ben Roethlisberger, and that was 2 years before Ben Roethlisberger retired, because his last 2 years that was not Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, so the thing is that he's been through Mike Tomlin's been through Duck Hodges, Mitchell Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, who just continues to get hurt, and Mason Rudolph. And you really cannot rely on any of those guys in a playoff game, in my opinion. I think that, that's the reason why they keep making it to the playoffs. Mike Tomlin has yet to have a season under 500, and people thought it would be this past season. They thought this was it because the Steelers were under 500 halfway through the season. So it was like, man, there's no way that they're going to be able to sustain, that record with Mason Rudolph coming as their quarterback, and they were able to do it. And so I feel like Mike Tomlin deserves a guy that's a starter, and I do not think that he deserves to have a guy like Russell Wilson. We saw Russell Wilson have one of his best seasons in the last 3 or 4 years, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. But it was a rocky. It didn't feel like 26 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. It felt a little bit off. So the thing is that, he's getting older. He's not able to improvise as much as he was in Seattle in his younger days. Not able to run as much. Not able to throw the ball as much. So, I see him being a backup in this league, and and with that being said, he could end up anywhere. Indianapolis. He could end up in Jacksonville for all that matters. But either Pittsburgh or the Atlanta Falcons, maybe.
Maybe so. I'm on the reserve. I don't mean injured reserve. I am on the reserve when it comes to Russell Wilson being related to the Steelers as far as any type of rumor mill. Now, where I see Russell Wilson actually landing, he could find himself in Las Vegas with the Raiders. Ooh, he's got a good fit there. He has some good connections there. He knows Mark Davis. He can play for Antonio Pierce any day of the week and twice on Sunday if he needs to. And literally twice on Sunday, once in the beginning, get injured, come back and play in the fourth quarter. But there's a lot of things that I like from Russell Wilson. He still has the accuracy, but the offensive line for the Denver Broncos was really not there. Decision-making process and play calling and things like that. Look, when you're in a place for so long as Russell Wilson was underneath Pete Carroll, there are problems. There are problems in the long term being able to adapt to another team's play style, another team's play sheet, another offensive coordinator who, and Wilson is no dummy. He figures it out. He gets it. But they just did not play with a full deck last year in Denver. I hate to say it, but it's true. And in Russell Wilson, as good as he is, the way the contract breaks down is this. If he signed on for another calendar year, which a new football year, which is right around the corner, he gets $124 million fully guaranteed. Now, the Broncos haven't outright said, we don't want you here, but
the writing's on the wall.
Says otherwise. He basically, the writing's on the wall, and he clearly says that, you know what, we don't know that he's not going to be here. We don't know that he is going to be here. And I thought to myself, wait, what? You don't know. $124 million fully guaranteed with a signing bonus in 2022 and a salary option bonus in 23 and then 24 salary. This is look. The $4 million in 2026 is only based on an injury. That's the only guarantee he has is if you get injured, that is his money, free and clear, $4 million straight up and call it a day. But he wasn't injured completely. And to be honest with you, 2026, I see another team taking a chance on Russell Wilson as their starter, and it could be Las Vegas. Now, I take nothing away from AOC's play. He played extremely well, Aiden O'Connell, and they won their game on the road against Kansas City in Kansas City. So he does have a feather in his hat with Antonio Pierce. And, of course, the Raiders themselves are very happy by keeping Antonio Pierce there instead of him going somewhere else because of this coaching carousel that the Raiders have had in quite some time. Is just you got to know when to stop. And Mark Davis certainly picked up where Al left off in firing people. And look what happened to John Gruden, and the list just goes on and on and on. They haven't had a stable coach there, well, anyway, for a very long time. And so, bottom line is this. Wilson to Las Vegas, or Derek Carr finds his way out of New Orleans, and somehow Mickey Loomis finds a way to make it work, and Russell Wilson will be your heir apparent starter in New Orleans.
Oh, man. I could see it in New Orleans. But who do you want to pick? Who do you want to pick rather than Derek Carr or Russell Wilson? It's like stupid or dumb. Both guys. I'm going
to take the guy who's actually won a Lombardi.
Okay.
And one that has not. One who consistently throws balls into double coverage, Derek Carr. Ones who understand and recognize what the defense is giving you if you've given adequate amount of weapons, Russell Wilson. And it's not even close. And that's where Derek Carr has that. There's a mile of separation between these two guys. And the separation is the have and the never will have. And the never will have is Derek Carr. The will have eventually is a guy by the name of Wilson. And I don't mean the tennis ball. I mean Russell Wilson. So certainly you got to look out for. He's your apparent starter somewhere, and I see it happening a lot sooner than later. With that being said,
if you could get Russell Wilson for a $1 million a year after that contract is up, And then I say, oh, I'm all for it. But there's a lot of guys that are coming out of this draft, 5 quarterbacks that are projected to go in the first round. So if you have one of those picks, even if you're at the bottom of that list, JJ McCarthy will still be there. Jaden Daniels might still be there. So I say that if I'm a GM and I'm looking towards the future, if I'm any of those teams, the Las Vegas Raiders or the Atlanta Falcons or the New Orleans Saints, I'm looking at one of these quarterbacks, these young quarterbacks, to develop and have for potentially the next 10 years.
Well, true, but you have to have, okay, this is where a lot of teams make the mistake. They go off and they get a great quarterback out of the NFL draft. Who do they learn from? Who is a veteran leadership on the sideline? Who's going to be the guy who's going to say and whisper into this, you know what, this is not exactly working out. You got to do something different. The only team that has that right now, we're talking vintage player, right, is Aaron Rodgers for the New York Jets. That's it. That's the only true vintage backup quarterback that is worth a darn. Now, I don't expect Aaron Rodgers to be the backup quarterback for very long, considering what happens in the NFL draft. And if any coach who's starting off being a new head coach in the league, Falcons, you mentioned, Raiders will have Antonio Pierce as their full-time coach, not their interim coach, and then second-year coach for the New Orleans Saints. You know, when it's all said and done, they want their guy, and it's going to be somebody in the draft. You mentioned J.J. McCarthy. He'll still be there, but he won't be there past the third round. He will not be there past the third round. He may be or may not be in the fourth round. I say maybe second, late second round, minimum, late second. Anytime before that, I'm good with, but he won't get past the end of the second round. There's just no way. He is ready. Is he the most available and ready quarterback? I think he's like 1-2, perhaps. JJ, maybe not so much. And you know what? Could be grabbed for tutelage underneath the Harbaugh in Los Angeles.
That would be crazy. Yeah, that would be crazy.
Wouldn't it? But crazier things have happened. This is the National Football League, or it stands for not for long. Speaking of not for long, we're about out of here. Barry, tell everybody where they can find you, where you can catch up with you, and talk some sports on social.
They can find me right here on social media at Barry Long II on X platforms, on the IG platform, as well as the Facebook platform. I look forward to hearing y'all like me, love me, and share me, and follow me.
The sharing thing, I'm probably not going to comment on, but make sure you guys follow me. Follow me right here as well. And I did point with the right finger in the right area. So go follow at Rude Dog Reyes on Twitter. Like this podcast, it'll be on the RudeDogShow.com. It'll be listed on LinkedIn. It'll be on every social media platform I could possibly imagine getting it to. But more importantly, like it, love it, share it. We dig that kind of thing. And subscribe to the YouTube channel, please. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a great night, and we will see you guys again mañana, or for those that don't know, tomorrow. Till then.